Welcome everyone to the Atomic Cinema Experiment. I am Peter, and joining me as always is Tara.
Greetings, citizens.
This is a science fiction movie podcast. We get together every week, we talk about a sci-fi movie, and on this episode we'll be talking about Pacific Rim Uprising. For tonight, we are once again cancelling the apocalypse. Yes, more on that later. So that is the plan for this episode. We'll get into it. We did the first one, of course, a while back, which is why I said we should really go back to that and do this, because there's only two. It's not like there's a big list of 10 sequels to get through. It's just there's one sequel. Let's just get it done and have it dusted. So we'll get into that in a little second, but I do have to take some time before that and inform everyone of something and encourage something. So coming soon, we will be doing a top 50 sci-fi movies. Not our top 50 sci-fi movies. We're having you guys vote on the top 50 sci-fi movies. So the voting is actually throughout the month of June, so we're already a little bit into it, of course, but the deadline's the end of the month. If you look at the description below, you will see the link to the submission form. It's quite simple. You put in your top 20, at least, sci-fi films. You can put a full top 50, but you do have to put at least a top 20, ranked in order, starting at number 1, and movies will get points based on where you place them, and we'll be doing our results sometime in July. It's kind of a summer countdown special. So that's something we'll be doing.
How exciting.
Yeah, it'll probably be 2 parts, like these top 50s usually are. So
can I submit a list too?
Yeah, why not? Like, we usually
I'll do it
lists.
anonymously, so you won't know who it is. I mean, you might know from the first 2 movies.
Yeah, I'm going to recognize your top 2. Also, I need to keep track of who's who, so don't do it anonymously.
Okay, then I'll submit 6.
Definitely don't do that. So yes. So go submit. Go submit. You got till the end of June to submit your top 20s or more sci-fi movies of all time. So go do that. And no combining franchises or trilogies. Each film has to be entered separately. If you combine any trilogies or anything like that, I'm just going to ignore them. So
who would do such a thing?
Yeah, you'd be surprised how many people try and get away with that kind of nonsense. And it doesn't fit the point system, so I'm just going to ignore it. They're getting no points. It's not going to happen. If I give them all points for being in that slot, then it's kind of breaking the system a little bit. So
could you just break the points it's worth in half and give half points to each film?
No, I'm not. That's because it's not allowed. I'm not having some sort of fallback thing that people can expect to happen. It's not happening. So make sure you do that. So top 50 voted. The Atomic Cinema Experiment audience vote for the top 50 sci-fi movies. So make sure you do that before the end of the month. Alright, so Pacific Rim Uprising. The sequel to Guillermo del Toro's film, which basically exists because John Boyega, who's not even in the first film, willed it into existence on his own. Because he liked it, apparently, and wanted to be in one, and wanted to do more. So here we are, directed by Stephen DeKnight. This came out in 2018. This was 5 years after the first film, so it was a pretty notable gap by movie standards. And yeah, so I'll get
I thought that Guillermo del Toro had an idea for the sequel that he wanted to do, and then originally was going to do a sequel, and then went, no, I can't do it because I'm going to make Shape of Water or something instead.
I don't remember any of this. It doesn't mean it's wrong, but I don't remember any of it.
Well, then it's absolutely right.
I mean, John Boyega definitely championed this and got it, because he produces this as well. He's not just in it. He spearheaded a lot of this. I mean, Del Toro's not credited as a writer at all on this. So
not even for story?
Nope.
Weird.
It's almost like Tara might just be wrong.
No, I'm definitely right.
I mean, I suppose he may have had an idea for a sequel, but then they didn't use it. It may just be they said, no, we're doing our own thing. So then they went off and did this instead. So that is so we're going to have Pacific Rim Uprising, and I had seen it before. I saw it when it came out in theaters. Tara had not seen it, so this was a first time watch. It is a little bit different to the first one, although the basic premise is kind of the same in that there's, giant, mechs that are called Jaegers. We have kaiju, who have not been back. In the first film they won, they closed the breach, so it's been 10 years, we're 10 years later in the film, and there's been no more kaiju, but people are still kind of preparing in case they come back, because, they barely won that first time. So, important to be prepared in case there's a second war, effectively. So we're introduced to the characters. There's a lot to go into, of course, but before we do any of that, before we start going through a plot, and obviously we'll probably just go straight into spoilers. I don't think anyone is going to care that much now about spoilers for this. So you've been warned. But I'll ask Tara the question. Did you enjoy or not enjoy Pacific Rim Uprising?
Well, I mean, I didn't really enjoy the first one. This one I liked about the same. There's definitely like some things that I like about it and some things that I got bored by fairly quickly. There's a lot of like story beats that don't really go anywhere. And there's one story beat that I really liked, but it didn't go in the direction that I wanted it to. And we'll talk about that. But I do think like John Boyega he's a strong character lead. Like he's fun to watch. I think he's got good banter, good chemistry with the girl he's teamed up with. I think Scott Eastwood plays the same guy he always seems to play. It's just super dry and unnecessary in this movie, which is unfortunate. But there's definitely the lack of Del Toro, because at least, I mean, I don't love his movies, but at least he's got style. And this movie kind of looks like the video game version of his film,
I can kind of see what you mean by that. That said, though, I do actually really like that some of the fights take place in daytime, and I like that the Jaegers are different colors, so it's very easy to kind of follow them.
Yeah,
I think they're, while purists are going to hate that I say this, but I do think there's genuine improvements in some ways in this over the first film, in terms of certain elements.
The lead characters are definitely an improvement, with the exception of Scott Eastwood, just because he's nothing in the movie. He doesn't really. He has there's nothing about his character that's interesting, He's just by the books military guy. He's the same guy he plays in Suicide Squad.
I don't remember him in Suicide Squad, if I'm honest, but
because he's that forgettable. He's the same. It's the exact same character.
I don't deny that he's forgettable. I'm not that hung up on him though. I don't care.
Well, I mean, he's on the poster. He's the third lead in the film.
I'll take your word for it. The poster I'm looking at right now doesn't have anyone's name on it, but
oh well, it was the poster when I rented the film.
Okay, I believe you. I'm sure it had 50 posters when it came out, because most movies do now. What's funny about going back to this one, because I definitely had fun with it when it came out, and I think at the time I said I liked it more than the first film, and I think I'm a bit more conflicted on that statement now. I'm not so sure I do like it more than the first one. I think, much like you, they probably work out to be a similar level, but the strengths and weaknesses are different. I don't necessarily. I mean, obviously, some of the core ideas are the same in that, yes, I'm enjoying big robot action, and that's the part that's kind of the same, I suppose. But I do think the strengths and weaknesses and what I like about each one is a little bit different. I think I like a lot of the ideas in the second one more. I think it suffers because it doesn't actually get enough time to focus on building some of the characters. I think there should be way more of Amara and the other kids to actually build a camaraderie there. So we'll get into that.
They start doing an Ender's Game thing, and then I think it really kind of gets abandoned. There's a lot of little storylines that are introduced. There's a love triangle that never comes up again, ever.
Kind of, yeah. No, there is definitely things that just it kind of seems to forget about for a long time, and it is used, like it's set up to be used later in the film, but it's less of a like. I almost thought that she was going to, that Amara was going to be the co-lead of the film, and we're going to follow her story equally with what was going on with the adults. And but it doesn't really do that, so it's kind of weird. So there's a lot of things like in the third act when we get the big third act action set pieces and they're in danger and stuff where I'm like, I wish I cared more about these connections a little bit. I wish we spent time with these characters enough that I actually gave a shit beyond just, the idea that I'm supposed to.
Right.
So I think there is legit complaints to be made there in critiques. Like I say though, I do think the Jaeger battle in the third act is particularly fun, and because they're all distinct colors this time, and because it's the daytime, you can actually sort of make out the fight a little bit better. I like that all of the Jaegers don't just immediately get destroyed within the first minute of the big fight, and it's just down to the one Jaeger. Like, they actually get to succeed and get some, signature moments each for a bit before it kind of gets whittled down, like you kind of expect it to.
Yeah, but there's something about the Jaeger fights in the first movie have like a real distinct look. Nobody uses like a ship as a baseball bat in this one, or like don't they use boats as like brass knuckles and stuff? Like there's some really fun things, like you have a skyscraper that's alive that's beating up a giant monster, like a Godzilla type thing. Like, use the environment that Guillermo does in his film that is fun, at least, and it's got like a more tangible look. Like, you really feel the weight of the Jaegers in his movie more so, and then in this one kind of just becomes more like there's a part where they're like fighting in snow and stuff, and then the ice starts cracking. I'm like, yeah, the thing weighs like the size, like the weight of a mountain. Like, of course it's going to be cracking. Like, why hasn't it gone through this thin layer of ice yet? Like, it doesn't feel the weight that the first one, like, you really felt it.
Yeah, I don't think I agree with the premise though that the first one used the environment more, because I feel like it had the ship bat. That was like the one big thing it did with the environment, whereas this one, I would say, has a similar.
Well, they
kind
just
of
had
thing
more unique. I thought they had more unique like fights in environments too. Like, they have like the ship thing because it's fighting in a shipyard, and then, or it's fighting in the rain. Like, yeah, it was fighting in the dark, but like this one's just fighting in snow or fighting in cities, and all the cities are just generic cities.
I don't see why. Like, why is the city at the end of this one in Japan any less or?
Because it's just like a generic like buildings. It's not like I don't know. There's no like landmarks, or it doesn't really. It feels like the end of like any superhero movie that just takes place in some city you've never heard of, where they're just like tearing through giant buildings. But that's it. Like, it's like the end of Godzilla vs. Kong.
That's kind of
like the same thing.
That's kind of a separate complaint, though, because what you said before is that it didn't use the environment, and I don't think that's true, because there's one of my favorite moments of the action in this is when it starts, when the main Gypsy Avenger starts like pulling down buildings, because it realizes that the kaiju is absorbing all the hits, kind of like Black Panther, actually, bizarrely, to compare it to something, and decides to start pulling down the skyscrapers on top of it. I thought that was a really fun use of the environment. I thought that was just as fun as the ship bat. And I don't know, like the final, because the fight in Hong Kong in the first Pacific Rim is really good. That's the peak of the film. Like, that's the part that I love in that first film. But the final stuff all takes place under the ocean. But that stuff all at the end is not that fun to look at. It's not that easy to make out what's going on. It's a little bit muddy. I definitely prefer the third act to this film to the first one by far. Like, I don't even think it's a comparison. Especially since the first film, as we pointed out when we talked about it, is so beat for beat like a weird remake of the ending of Independence Day. Like, you can actually track the plot beats from each film, and it lines up perfectly. It's so weird. Yeah, sure, the site is a bit generic, but I don't necessarily think that's a huge deal. Like, I got a lot more personality out of each of the Jaegers in this one. Like, one was a bit more agile and was kind of jumping around and swiping. One was the big bulky one with the big sort of the spinny, like, mace-like ball with the things.
Like a morning star.
One was like red and white, so it stuck out a little bit more. I don't know if that had specific skills necessarily that stuck out, but it definitely still looked distinct enough that I could get the different sense of it in the fight. Like, I understood, I could always kind of like understand which Jaeger I was looking at, what it was doing in the fight. I could always kind of feel that sense. And yeah, it doesn't really bother me that the city's kind of just. I mean, you say that though, but like, is this based on a real city? Is this based on like?
I don't know.
I mean, it may be.
But it's also like a future where there's already monsters tearing up cities, so.
That's true. Yeah, they've probably.
Like, I don't know.
It may be based on a real city, but they've added like a bunch of buildings because they can. Like, why not?
Future.
It's the future.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I think bizarrely the one thing I'm going to disagree with you on here is the look. I think this film looks better than the first one.
Oh, it doesn't really have any style. It kind of just it looks like the beginning scene reminded me so much of Alita Battle Angel. It just kind of has that future video game look to me.
I'm not going to say this is
we're just having an adventure with a kid and we're trying to escape the law.
Don't mistake me for saying that I think this looks better than the first one for the most part. It's saying it looks unique or stylistic, because I don't.
Well, that's what I think the first one has, because it's got a director who has a unique style.
Yeah, but I think the style in the first one is a detriment to what it's doing at times. Because it's hard to see what's going on in some of the big fights, and because it's always at night, and because it's got this kind of darker tone in its color grading versus this, which is a lot more brighter and vivid. Now, admittedly, it is kind of just neutral in a lot of ways. There's not really much of a sense of thing, but I think it wanted to have that kind of poppy comic book colors, because yeah, the Jaegers do stick out when they're having that fight in broad daylight at the end.
It's very Power Rangers.
It's very Power Rangers, which and the first one was good because it felt like Power Rangers at times, so they leaned into that. They leaned into the best thing the first one had going for it. So, no, I can't get on board with that. I really can't. I think one of the things that stuck out to me, even from the trailer for this when they were advertising it, was like, oh, this looks better than the first one, just visually, because I can actually see what's going on. And I'm someone who will obviously, like, usually want, like, you know, I want a director's style, I want this or that. But I'm also someone who, and again, this is blasphemy to a lot of people, who's not really much of a fan of Guillermo del Toro. I'm sorry, everyone, but I think his films are overrated.
I like him. Like, he's definitely hit or miss for me. And sometimes it is a bit more style over substance, but like he still has a unique style, and I can't help but like look forward to what he comes out with, because I do think he has like a good mind for fantasy and the fantastical world that he can create. He doesn't make anything that looks like anything else.
Before this goes any further, though, I want to make something perfectly clear, because I feel like I can already hear the comments typing about me defending this very schlocky blockbuster robot movie, especially against the darling that is Guillermo del Toro. But I want to make it clear that I do not think this movie's a smart movie. I do think it's got a messy script that doesn't focus on its characters enough. I do think there's a ton of things that could be better and fixed. I think ultimately I kind of like this movie because it appeals to a lot of my sensibilities, and that's not to say though that rewatching it now again that I wasn't noticing more problems, or I wasn't feeling the impact of what it does get wrong or what it fails to do. But the core concept of this movie, which is you've got this sort of rebel teenager who's kind of like built her own little mini Jaeger on her own.
She's got her bumblebee,
because she's got a bit of a rebel, and she's like a go-getter, and she's got a fiery spirit, and the fact that she's going to end up having to team up with our main character. And you were talking about Boyega earlier. I think he's a little hit and miss in this movie. I think there's times where he does sound very naturally charismatic. I think there's other times though where he bizarrely goes a little bit too thick with the Britishisms, and it sounds a bit weird. But it really sticks out though in this, because there's also times where he sounds like he's written so that Americans understand him. So when he does go more British,
That's funny.
it sounds really weird because early on when he's talking about what was it he says. It's when he's like doing all his exposition at the start, where he's talking about the fact that he lives in the underworld and he's like trading stuff in like Pacific islands because they're all like kaiju destroyed, so it's kind of like no man's land out there. There's a couple of things he says that just stuck out as being a little bit weird. Yeah, like when he calls Oreos cookies, for example, like that really stuck out as being kind of weird to me.
When he's collecting like
Yeah.
hot sauce and stuff and things that are being traded,
Yeah, like
because commodities are more valued now than like money.
yeah. Although I did kind of groan a little bit this time watching it, that how product placementy that section was. Because it was like a brand of cereal, then it was the Oreos, and then it was the hot
Sriracha.
sauce. Yeah, it was like it was like brand after brand after brand.
Yeah.
At least later on.
I mean, it makes sense though. Like if the world had to like give up all of its resource to make these giant robots, that we don't have factories to make sriracha anymore, that they would be a hot commodity.
Sure.
That's not a joke because it's hot sauce.
Yeah, you claim. But at least later on, when he's like it turns out he's got like an ice cream like obsession or whatever. There's no brands involved in that because he's just like it's just ice cream and it's just like cream and sprinkles and whatever. Like it's not like focusing
Don't
on
mess with my toppings.
specific things. So that's fine later. Although it's a really weird scene just in the
It is. It's supposed to be like this, like Riggs and Murtaugh or something.
That was one of the scenes. That's one of the scenes I was mentioning or I was thinking about when I said that he's hit and miss. That was like one of the scenes where I didn't think the chemistry
it tends
really
to be
worked.
the comedy stuff that I think is like it's a bit too much. But I don't know if I could put that on him versus like the director, or the writing.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I think he tends to be funnier when he's interacting with Amara. When he's interacting with Scott Eastwood,
I really
weird.
like them actually. I thought they made a good duo for like the adventure side of the film, and then the teacher-student relationship.
Yeah, but when he's interacting with Scott Eastwood, I think some of those so their bickering kind of falls flat occasionally. Their camaraderie feels a little bit forced at times. I don't think so here's the thing. I actually watched this twice in the past week because we were meant to record a week ago. So
That happens a lot with us.
I've now seen this 3 times, twice in the last week, and I still don't really understand exactly what he did to upset Scott Eastwood back in the day when he left. I don't know if
I don't know.
I don't know if they ever made it clear exactly what
Was it just him choosing to leave? That was the problem. He said something like "Don't steal anything," but that could just mean because he's a thief now.
Well, no,
Maybe he stole some tech.
He didn't
to
choose.
sell.
Well, he didn't choose to leave. He got kicked out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he got kicked out. But I guess getting himself kicked out, and because he was his drift partner, it kind of shelved him as well. Maybe it's just that simple. But I don't know if the movie made that ultra clear, as it was going on. So I think that's worth critiquing a little bit. But and yeah, there's kind of a love triangle thing with them and Isaac Gonzalez, and I remember like looking forward to her being in this movie and then being disappointed that she's
in like maybe a total of 20 seconds.
She's in 20 seconds and she's basically just there for these two guys to both like be attracted to. And it's not, and this is the thing, it doesn't even get that bad.
Well, they both have history with her, right?
Do they?
Like Boyega has history with her, but now she's with Eastwood.
No, I think you're making this up.
Well, you've seen it more than me.
I think you're like taking.
I thought it was like okay, maybe.
No.
Maybe he was just flirting.
Yeah, no, it was just flirting because he flirts when he sees her, Boyega that is, and then Eastwood. So every time like, it comes up, he kind of like snaps at him and says, keep your head in the game or something like that. And all it is that it builds up to a joke before the start of Act 3, where she kisses them both in the cheek and asks them both to stay alive and be careful. And Boyega says, "Well, that's confusing." So she's not in a relationship with either of them, right? That's
She's
what
definitely not in a
is.
relationship with Eastwood.
I'm positive. You know what? I actually think this debate is a very good case example for the characters in this movie, because I actually think one of the problems with the characters is how thin they are, and this kind of relationship between Boyega, Eastwood, and Gonzalez is one of the thin elements that I would critique for being too kind of just slightly there and no more.
Yeah, the same thing kind of happens with like the kids that are part of the cadet program, where there seems to be like this rivalry that comes out of nowhere with a Russian student, and that just kind of goes away. It's just resolved on its own, unless I miss something.
No, I mean it's kind of there. Again, it's very thin. It's you know, so Amara, she's built her own little Jaeger. She gets into trouble because there's like a Jaeger defense force who like tries
It
to.
definitely looks like Bumblebee, right? The Jaeger she builds, Scrapper.
Less movie Bumblebee and more like traditional Transformers Bumblebee.
It looks like Bumblebee to me, yeah.
Yeah, like the animated Bumblebee, not the movie Bumblebee.
Sure. Well, I mean, even the movie, it kind of looks like the movie one a bit too. It just doesn't have the colors.
No, let me clarify. When I say movie Bumblebee, I mean the actual Transformers movies, not the movie called Bumblebee.
No, I'm talking about the movie called Bumblebee that we watched.
I forgot for a second that Bumblebee actually had the more traditional design in his solo spin-off movie. I'd forgotten that existed. I was just talking about the because he's a Corvette.
He's got like an insect-looking head.
Yes. It's very Bumblebee. Yes, but classic Bumblebee. I was thinking like the main Shia LaBeouf movies.
No, I was referring to the one that we watched 2 years ago or something.
I'm sorry, it wasn't that memorable. Okay,
it wasn't.
I mean, Haley Steinfeld, bless her heart, tried her best.
Well, I think that's what it made me think of it too, just because it was like Bumblebee and his young human, lady friend.
Yes. So, but anyway, and that's a fun enough sequence at the start when we sort of learn like how this thing works. It can roll into a ball and stuff like that, and she tries to run away from a big proper Jaeger who tries to arrest her. That gets her in trouble, and that's what leads her is being recruited by Mako to this program. And yes, when she arrives there, it's kind of Ender's Game-esque. We've got like all these teenagers, and you know what? They give a good reason. To be fair to them, I actually think their reason for why they train teenagers seemed okay. It was like, no, you bond with people better. You have a longer lasting, tighter bond if you start a relationship with people young. And I'm like, oh, you know what? That actually sounds, for a movie, that sounds reasonable enough. Like I'm on board with that. Right?
There's less trauma that you have to drift with.
Yes. Especially since it's because obviously we know that because it's a movie they're going to have to pilot Jaegers by the end, because otherwise we wouldn't be spending all this time with them, but you get the sense that that's not the intention. The intention is they won't actually pilot Jaegers until they're adults. Like they won't actually be out there doing things. It's only because all the other pilots get killed that they're like, shit,
yeah,
okay,
they can't count on twins or brothers anymore.
Yes. So I appreciate that. But yeah, like you say, so she gets introduced to all the cadets, and most of them are nice to her, but there's this one really mean Russian girl who like has a problem because she trained for this and like had to like apply, and Amara just got picked up off the street because she built her own Jaeger. Did she built her own Jaeger? I don't think so.
Yeah, it worked.
I know. They have a fight at one point, but then they kind of just once they actually they're in a Jaeger in the third act, they just kind of seem to like get along because they're actually in the heat of battle together. That's basically it. Again, it's kind of thin. Like these are all things that are fine ideas. Like I love the concept of like this team of teenagers, and maybe it's because it is a bit more Power Rangers, because we have teenagers who are ultimately going to be the ones piloting these stupid big robots.
Yeah.
But yeah. So I can't disagree with that. I think all of the character stuff is just too thin. Like conceptually, I don't have a problem with any of the ideas they present me with. They're all just a bit underdeveloped.
Yeah, I think they just needed. I mean, this movie's pretty long, but like, there's some stuff you could cut, I'm sure, and then like focus a little bit more on the kids, so that they had more of a storyline throughout.
Do you know, honestly, by today's blockbuster standards, it's not actually that long. Because there's still like 10 minutes of credits, so it's you're done like
it's a little over 2 hours then.
It's I mean it's less than 2 hours even with credits.
Oh, I thought it was like over 2 hours.
Maybe it felt like over 2 hours to you.
Maybe.
No, it's like I think with credits it's like an hour 50 something, but it's like it's like an hour 40 without the credits. So
I mean, it didn't feel like a long movie, honestly.
But by today's standards, like you could easily add 10 minutes, and all that 10 minutes would be there to flesh out the character stuff, both with the adults and the kids, and just give them a bit more time, give them a bit more of an arc, and that could make me just care a little bit more about the ongoings. I mentioned Mako there when I was talking about, because Mako's kind of in charge. There's no mention. Did they mention that the Hunnam get killed or something? Did they even address that he was maybe dead? I think they did. There may have been like one throwaway line about him dying.
Oh, I didn't hear anything about him.
I think there might have been one throwaway line. But Mako's like in charge of the whole program, because obviously Idris Elba's gone. Which we should mention, by the way, this didn't even come up. John Boyega is Idris Elba's son in this. Right? Which is neat. I will say, because this is one of those things where I love when they get, I especially in a cheesy movie like this, because it's a cheesy blockbuster, right? And that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
I am down with a couple of cheesy wink references, but sometimes you can go too far and ruin it. And the example I'm going to give you is this.
Charlie Day, when
he meets John Boyega, he says, "Oh, your dad gave really great speeches." That's a good reference. That's a funny line. I laughed. And then he ruins it by going, "Did you hear the one where he cancelled the apocalypse?" I'm like, "No, you took it too far. Now it's not funny anymore."
Yep. Although I will say, the stuff that happens with Charlie Day is probably my favorite stuff in the film.
Oh, you mean where
I really, really wish that it went a different direction. So go ahead and tell him about it, and then I hit the mic. Sorry.
Well, I want to talk about Mako first. We'll get back to Charlie Day, because Mako, unfortunately, like, you can see it coming a million miles away, that she's going to be the shock early death in the sequel to, like, raise the stakes. And I actually do like the scene in question, because you've got, like, they're doing a big ceremony, and the Jaeger's basically just there as, like, I mean, it's kind of for security, but it's mostly just, like, a showpiece kind of thing. And Boyega and Eastwood are in it. And there's a couple of fun moments here where they try to like grab the rocket that the evil Jaeger, because that's one of the big things we'll talk about, is the fact that we've got like evil Jaegers in this one. But I mean, none of the Jaegers are sentient themselves, but you know what I mean. There's villainous entities using the Jaegers
instead of the monsters. Yeah.
Yes, there's evil Jaegers.
No kaiju, we get Jaegers.
So, and I do actually think I do kind of like the awkwardness of like Mako's in this helicopter, and it's going down because it's been hit. And they try and dive to catch it, and they just miss it. I actually think the sequence is fun in terms of how it's shot, but I will admit, I kind of... And I'm not that attached to Mako as a character, because the characters in the first one aren't that great, but...
No, they're not.
I think on principle, it still annoyed me a little bit, because I'm like, oh yeah, you're going to kill one of the main characters from the first one.
Yeah.
It's just such a sequel-y thing to do. Like, I'm never going to be upset like I am at the start of Alien 3 at this. It's not the same. It's not the same level.
Of course not, no.
But on principle,
Oh, you like this character? They're gone now.
So, I just wanted to mention that quickly, just because like that's her. She's done. All right, we can move on. Although, I will say that it's kind of funny that there wasn't even like a reference to not only like I mean maybe Idris Elba like mentions he has a kid in the first one, but like the idea that like Mako has this like sibling like relationship with him, you think that would have come up at least once in the first movie. So it's clearly tacked on.
It's a little like Michael Burnham and Spock in Star Trek Discovery. A little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, it's less glaring because, like, at least with this, it's only 1 2-hour movie versus 3 seasons and 6 movies.
Hey, Star Trek has been guilty of this before. Even Spock has been guilty of this before. He never talked about his brother.
That is true, yes.
Cyborg.
Which, yes. I was about to say, why didn't Michael ever know about him? But then I guess I remember, because even he was secretive, right?
It's from before her, yeah.
Yeah, he's like secretive and he was off exiled and stuff. Yeah, yeah. Okay.
He was the embarrassing family member no one spoke of.
Yes. So, but yeah, you want to talk about Charlie Day. So, I as much as I complained about that joke, I do kind of love Charlie Day in this movie. He's over the top. He's overacting. He's being cheesy. But on top of that, he's having weird orgasm shared mind sex with a kaiju brain.
This is my favorite part of like the new lore is that because he like connected with or drifted with the kaiju brain from the first film, that he has some sort of connection to it where it's almost like a thrill seeker thing that turns out it's more nefarious, like he's actually being controlled. But I sort of love the idea of him just in this like relationship with the brain that, you know, like it's something kind of sweet. Like it's just he has this connection and like he wants to introduce her to his friend who also drifted with him.
Well,
you get to meet Alice.
Yeah, I love that tease. Because obviously when he says this at the start of the movie, you just assume, oh, he got married in the last 10 years. Because he says, oh, come over for dinner.
It's been a while. Yeah.
You can finally meet Alice. And you're like, oh, he's got someone. And we have a scene where he comes home from work and he's like, oh, today's been hell, honey. And he's like, sort of like, you know, taking his coat off and he's
There's
like complaining about work.
Some romantic song playing in the background.
It's Foreigner. No, I know this because I was laughing because right when he starts to orgasm, when he puts the brain thing on, that's when the chorus kicks in. I want to know what love is. I know you can show me.
It's a great scene.
It's perfect.
And I so wish that instead of him being like under control, that he was just genuinely in this relationship. And just like she was like manipulating him, but like, you know, he's just this nerdy guy who doesn't get along well with girls, so he has this thing. I would have loved that to have been the storyline.
So you wished he was still in full control of his faculties, at least in the traditional sense.
Right.
Yeah.
And then like, you know, it was the big betrayal of his love that, you know, it turned him into the bad guy. Not, you know, he didn't want to, but you know, women have that. Women can have that power over men sometimes.
Can we acknowledge just how really freaking weird this is for such a mainstream blockbuster?
Yeah, it's so weird. And if you have the captions on, it's weirder.
Because this is, you know, let's face it, this is a movie that is designed to work for young kids, right? Maybe not like ultra young, but like definitely your PG-13 and you know, that crowd, right? This is definitely meant to appeal to them in every possible way. And it's got a plot where Charlie Day is linking up to an alien brain and like just
for pleasure.
For pleasure, yes.
The thrill of it. I love how the other guy is he's getting nightmares from it and stuff, but Charlie's just like plugging back in just to feel it again.
Yeah, Burn Garman, he's back as well, of course. What
a great name.
Yeah. I think he's pretty good in this. He actually, I mean, he's still a bit over the top, right?
Yeah, I thought he was worse in the first one.
Yeah, I agree with that. And he actually gets maybe not the best line, but he's got, so one of the things that maybe we might have said about the first one is that it overused its main theme too much. One of the things that this sequel does, which I love when sequels do this, is that they withhold the main theme until a big moment where it really you feel it hit. And he actually gets the moment where it's right when they're at the worst has happened at the end of Act 2, and it's like, okay, these three kaiju are here now and they're going to do this apocalyptic thing, blah blah blah, like, and we can't get to them in time unless my like really crazy theoretical thruster tech is going to work. And they say, he's like, in theory, he's like, what does that mean? And the camera like tracks in, he goes, today it means yes. And then it cuts to a montage of them like prepping the Jaegers, and it's like, and that's when the music kicks like na 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 na, and I'm like, yes, you held off. And it was a moment because you weren't playing that all movie every time the Jaegers were doing something. It was a moment. Yeah. And I think what worked about it the first time I saw it is that I didn't have the main theme memorized, so I'd forgotten there was a main theme. So when it kicked in the second one, I actually started like oh yeah, and I started cackling with joy because I was like, I'd forgotten about this music.
I actually didn't even recognize the music. It's been a little while since we watched Pacific Rim, and that was the first time I had seen it also.
Okay, clearly it didn't work for everyone, but it worked for me.
Right? Yeah. I get it.
So
I get
thought
it.
was neat.
I get the same feeling in Creed. You know, they hold off the Rocky theme until the moment you need to hear it the most.
That is actually a good example. That is maybe one of the best examples of holding off the theme until the right moment.
It's almost like you forget that the theme exists, and then you're like, oh yes, and this is the perfect time.
Yes. I almost feel bad for even letting this like air because I feel like you shouldn't have it spoiled. But I mean, it's been long enough, I suppose. That like I would be mad. See if someone told me before I saw Creed that the theme was going to show up at some point, I would have been pissed.
Mm-hmm.
When I got to that point in the movie, I'd have been mad that someone had told me it was going to happen.
Oh come on, Creed! You get so into Creed. If you haven't seen it, like,
No, I'd have been
well,
mad.
shame on you. But
I would have been mad. I would have feel like that moment was special because I didn't know it was coming.
Oh well, I mean, I had heard it because I watched reviews before, and that's something that they brought up because obviously it's an incredible moment. But like when you're watching the movie's just so good, you don't really think about the reviews while you're watching it. I don't anyway. When it's a good film, you just get invested, and then it kicks in, and you go, "Oh yeah, they were right. This is right. This is the perfect moment."
I mean, that's potentially yes, but there's a chance that it will like be there in my brain. Like it depends what it is. It varies from time to time. I'm just saying. Like that was a special moment. That was a special moment in the theater.
I agree.
So, hey, so yeah, we have to get into the actual plots. I mean, there's most about the characters, I suppose. We have what's her name? Played by T and Jing, but Xiao. She's this like billionaire businesswoman.
She's introduced as the villain.
Well,
She's made all these drone Jaegers.
She's introduced as kind of an antagonist, and then they tease that she's the full-on villain that's actually behind the evil Jaeger, and then it twists into it's Charlie Day who's doing because he's working for her and he's actually done this all behind her back, and then she's kind of like a hero by the end when she's helping them. But yeah, so she's there, and yeah, I mean the plot of the movie, right? So I'm going to try and sum this up, okay? Right?
Okay.
In terms of the actual like threat. So once we have Boyega, who's chosen to come and help train the recruits to avoid going to jail for being involved in the earlier scrapper thing. Because there was a whole thing at the start of the movie where he was helping like criminals like steal old Jaeger tech, but Amara had already stolen it, and that's how they end up running into each other. But the guy from The Expanse was going to shoot him for betraying him. It was a whole thing. Anyway, so once they're on board, this evil Jaeger shows up during the big presentation, kills Mako, causes a bunch of destruction, and it's like, okay, who's behind this? And Mako, before she dies, sends like something on her tablet. Right? She was looking into something suspicious, and it turns out to be a location, like an old Jaeger factory or something like that, out in the middle of the Arctic. And that's why they go to investigate. Evil Jaeger shows up again. They have the big fight on the ice. They go underwater. It's a whole thing. And it's an okay fight. It's not great. Because it's all just snow and ice and water. There's no
scale.
There's no great sense of scale. So it's probably a little bit weaker in that sense. But there's some fun to be had. And then once they sort of like analyze what's driving it, because when it rips off the head or the face, there's no pilots.
It's Alice.
It's something that looks like Alice. It's a brain. Yeah, it's like a kaiju brain. But then when Burn Gornum does his science-y, stuff, he discovers that it's not actually naturally alien. It's sort of synthetic. Like it's been based on the alien brains, but it's not actually one of them. And it's like, wait, so humans are behind this. This didn't come through a rift. This is the humans. The humans.
Yeah, it's like when scientists clone human ears on the back of mice.
Aye.
That's a real thing.
Yeah. Aye, it's just that. So she's going to launch her drone Jaegers, right? And the idea is she's going to replace, and they're all kind of worried that they're getting replaced because she's built tech that can be basically operated. So
Classic storyline.
yeah, it's effectively, once we see it being used, it's like, when we see them inside the Jaegers, they've got the holograms around them. Basically, they'll just do that from base instead, and they don't have to have 2 pilots per Jaeger anymore, and it's just it's a complete replacement thing. But Charlie Day, of course, when they do go to launch them all, there's a moment where Amara and the kids like sneak into the evil Jaeger, and she ends up getting one of the other kids hurt whilst they're in there, and that gets her kicked out very briefly, which this is another thing that's very thin. Like the whole idea of her having to fight her way back in.
This is when the Russian students like, you're all right.
Yeah, but like this is one of these things where
Respect.
she gets kicked out for sneaking in there and getting one of the other kids hurt, but she basically gets accepted back in within like 10 minutes of things happening, and it's just kind of like there was no like her proving herself like or anything to like get back in, which I felt like was the big
Once
dramatic
war were
beat.
declared.
Yeah,
That's it.
yeah, but it's literally just way I thought I was kicked out, and Boyega goes, "I'm kicking you back in," and that's it. It's just over. It's like okay, I guess that's that little arc done. That little plot thread is complete. But anyway, but she notices something that matches the tech that Shao builds, and that makes them, so Burn Gordon is all happy because he's actually got a mission for once. He's going to go and talk to Charlie Day to make so they can like take her down from the inside. But then of course he launches all the drones, and it turns out that he's the evil one, and the drones that have like the kaiju brain kind of expand, so they've got like some kaiju tissue coming out of the drone like Jaeger bodies. Most of them go to like form new rifts. They go and like beam into the the surface of the earth and like open a portal for some kaiju. But some of them come to the base where all the Jaegers are and start like trying to kill everyone. So this is quite kind of a fun sequence because you get like all of the humans not in Jaegers like running from like the robots, and it's kind of tense and all these things are going on. Luckily Shao was able to like sort of hack them and sort of make them all sort of self-destruct eventually, but they're in danger for quite a bit here. But 3 kaiju do get through. I did enjoy the visual of one kaiju getting like split in half because it gets shut when all the drones get turned off. I do enjoy how the blood kind of glows a little bit. It's got that kind of
that bioluminescence.
Yeah, it's like someone's like cut a lava lamp in half, and it's just like bleh. Bleh.
Magic kaiju blood.
Magic kaiju blood.
That's how you power the rockets. So now there's plenty of rocket fuel.
That's how you power the rocket, because they're too heavy for any conventional fuel. It has to be the magic kaiju blood fuel.
Yeah.
So that's how that. But anyway, so the big plot thing that's introduced here is that all the kaiju, and this includes the first film, all the kaiju secretly always were heading. They were always converging to one location, and that was Mount Fuji, because.
I think that's kind of fun, actually. It's like a bit of a nod to all the kaiju movies.
Oh sure, yeah, Japan.
The past, they always take over Japan, much like American movies. They always take over New York or San Francisco or something. It's there's a reason. There's a beacon there.
Yeah, I know.
That we can't see.
I like that it's a homage to Japan being the origin of kaiju.
It might also be because this movie probably did well in Japan.
And not even just kaiju. Japan's also the origin of like the idea of like these big mech fights and stuff. Like this is all anime
Ultron
stuff.
And stuff. Right now, Ultron. No, what's the
Voltron?
Voltron. Yeah, I don't know. I don't watch it.
Is that Japanese?
What?
Voltron, is that Japanese?
I think so. Don't they have a cartoon on Netflix or something people like?
Yeah, but well, that's the new version. But is it originally Japanese?
I think so. When I lived there was a bunch of Voltron action figures you can buy.
Sure. Okay. I just didn't know. I didn't know if Voltron was American or Japanese.
I think it is.
Okay.
Well, I mean, there's Power Rangers, Mechagodzilla.
Yeah. Or even before. I mean, maybe
Princess Space.
Maybe Mechagodzilla is the earliest example, but there's definitely tons of stuff before because you got like what'd you call it? Ghost in the Shell? Is that one?
Yeah, I haven't seen it.
Or what's the one I'm trying to think of? The one with there's a stupid penguin in the fridge. I tried to watch like one episode of it and I realized I hated anime.
Cowboy Bebop?
No, it's not Cowboy Bebop. It's
Dragon
something.
Ball?
No, there's kids piloting
Sailor Moon.
Jaegers. Stop saying none of these.
Pikachu. Jim Jam.
I'm not going to think about it. I can't think of something where you're yelling random names at me. Oh, I'm not going to think of it. I'm not going to think of it. It was shit, whatever it was. Anyway. It's going to annoy me, but anyway. So, yes, the three kaiju they got through are all heading towards Mount Fuji. And that's why they have to attach big rockets to the Jaegers. And because so many pilots died in this attack, with them attacking the base, they have to enlist the recruits, the kids, to pilot all the various Jaegers. There's one that takes 3, and then there's obviously the others all take 2. And they all
Have jetpacks.
get rocketed to Japan, and they land in front of Mount Fuji so they can take on the 3 kaiju that are on their way to the thing. And I think all the action here is a lot of fun. Like, the movie, like, if this last 20 minutes was like unsatisfying, the entire movie would have been worthless. Like, it wouldn't nothing would have worked.
It's good for a little while. I think I just kind of get a little bored of the fight. I don't know. That happens to me though if the fights last too long and they're not changing it up enough.
I felt like it did change up though, this thing, but okay.
Yeah, I still got a little bored.
I appreciated the different sort of beats that were in here. You had, like, you know, one of them ducking out the way whilst one of them got, like, knocked back, like, over the top of them. We mentioned earlier on the buildings being, like, sort of pulled down to, like, topple the kaiju. I kind of love that they do actually kind of win. There's kind of, like, they're starting to, like, hold their own, and they do manage to, like, sort of beat back the 3 of them, which is why, you know, Charlie Day, like, unleashes all these little mini robots that connect the 3 kaiju together into a super kaiju.
Mm-hmm. The Megazord.
It's not a Zord though, is it? It's the kaiju, so it's more like a mecha. Well, it's not even a mecha. The mega monster. I don't know. It's different.
Okay.
Well, Megazord implies that the Jaegers connect and form a big Jaeger.
Yeah. But it's the evil version.
I know I'm being nerdy about this, but I don't think we can call it a Megazord.
Okay. Are the other monsters that come out, are they mechanical?
They seem mechanical. Yeah, the little ones that connect them.
So, yeah, it's a little bit of a Megazord then.
I guess.
You're so bothered by this.
It's a stretch. I don't know. It's not a Megazord, okay? I'm just
Okay.
it's a super kaiju or so. I don't know what you want to call it.
Okay.
I mean, it's 2 category 4s and a 5. Do you know what's so funny? They spent so much time in the first movie talking about category numbers, and it literally comes up once in this entire film. It's when they first appear, and Burngorm says it's 2 4s and a 5, and then they never utter the numbers again. And it's just so funny because the first movie, like, constantly talked about cat 3s and 4s, and the first ever 5, or was it the first ever 6? Whatever it was at the end, it was like the first ever one.
Yeah, probably 6.
So the 2 4s and a 5 combining, does that, like, become like a 13?
13.
You said
It's a category 13.
Were you trying to mouth that to me because you thought I couldn't do the math, or were you unsure?
Yes.
How dare you?
The way that it timed up on my end, I was trying to help you.
Okay. All right. Well, I got there.
It's okay. I know it's been a while for you.
All right. Well, the thrilling climax. Well, one of the kids does die. Only one, which I think I like. I think it would have been very easy to either kill none of them, which would have been kind of, you know, spineless, or, like, kill, like, all but the main one that we know, which would have been really, like, cliched.
So it's the one that
It's the one whose
Which one
dad.
died?
It's the one whose dad works on boobs. That's the one who
yeah,
dies.
yeah. The boob one.
Yes. His dad's a plastic surgeon. For
It's
anyone.
good to know that some professions can live past the apocalypse.
Hey, society's
We
cool,
still
it's
have our
functioning.
priorities straight, you know. Still kind of get them boobies.
Boobs are important. All right. Look. Every form of media that has lasted because porn existed on it. All the ones that
Sure.
didn't have porn, they all died.
Yeah, but you think like people would just embrace natural breasts for a little while anyway, and like worked on things like medicine or factories getting their hot sauce back.
Well, to be fair, I don't think the hot sauce thing is that there's no hot sauce in general. I think it's just that there's no hot sauce in these like the coastal areas that are all still, kaiju like wastelands basically.
Mm-hmm.
Because it seems like the regular cities everywhere else are all fine. They seem normal still to me.
Well, yeah, kaiju only attack areas with large buildings that they can knock over.
Well, yeah, but he even
Otherwise,
says
what's the point?
no, but he even says at the start that most of the big cities bounce back and like rebuilt. It's only like some of these like smaller areas that just get left to. So I don't think that these things are hard to come by in the more populated areas. Hell, Japan's even got this fancy shelter. You see this like sort of cylinder like
Yeah,
entrance
right?
kind of like going to the ground.
Yeah.
Because Burn Arms even says like everyone's like evacuated into the shelters. You're clear to engage, which. And these Jaegers and these pilots do not care one bit about how many buildings they are. I mean, I mentioned I enjoyed the buildings being torn down, but even when the first one like whips out the laser swords, it like just like, goes into the buildings at the sides. I'm like, that's just, you didn't need to do that. Like that's
Right, everyone's in shelters. We'll just build buildings again. It's no big deal when one gets taken down.
not at all.
Or 18.
I think 18's been a generous estimate, quite frankly.
Yeah, you're right. It's like 1 per second.
But yes, so one does get killed because he gets cocky. It's once the kaijus went super kaiju. And they all run in, but they get their ass whipped. The agile one gets the legs cut off. The other one, the big bulky one that Amara's in, gets pulled apart, so they have to evacuate. So we see the fancy escape pods again. And basically they're left in a position where they can't fight anymore. And the big super kaiju...
The Gypsy Avenger also gets like a blade to the face.
Yeah, I
Because
guess
Scott
pretty messed
Eastwood
up.
has been taken out. And they have a weird like little eject system where they just like whoop, put him into the like the brain of the Jaeger. I
Yeah.
don't know. It was a neat effect where he's just like, whoop, you're gone.
Yeah. Wasn't that in the first one as well? Didn't they go into the...
I don't remember.
I mean, the escape pods look very similar because I remembered the inflatable things around it and stuff.
I don't remember. I just the effect of Scott Eastwood being lifted off into the head of the, or into the brain section of the Gypsy Danger Gypsy Avenger, excuse me, was fun. I like the name Gypsy Avenger a bit more than Gypsy Danger. Gypsy Danger
Sure.
sounds like a stripper.
Okay.
I mean, please welcome to the stage, Gypsy Danger. Huh? No? Maybe a little AC/DC?
You've clearly spent more time in strip clubs than I have, so it's fair
I know
enough.
that's true. Yeah.
So no, but anyway, so yeah, Amara, because Scott Eastwood gets injured and he can't pilot anymore, he gets ejected, and she runs up and like jumps and like onto the hand of the, and John Boyega is able to like control it just enough to like pick her up, and so she can climb in the front of the head, and they sync up, and it's like, so the plan is, because they can't really fight anymore, and the kaiju is on its way to Mount Fuji, which we never even mentioned. When it gets to Mount Fuji, it's going to basically combine its blood with the natural, like, rare elements in Mount Fuji, and it will basically cause the apocalypse, like, properly, where it'll set the Pacific ring on fire and release
The Ring of
toxins
Fire.
all over the planet, and everyone will die. So The stakes are high. It's very safe. So the plan becomes to basically just try and like fly up as high as they can and then just aim and land on top of it. Like they basically just treat the whole thing like a bomb and just nuke the bastard. And this is where the scrapper comes back into it. So basically, I thought this was neatly set up actually, because like Shao's whole thing was about drone operating Jaegers, and we know that Scrapper, because it's small enough, only takes one pilot. So I thought they did a good job of like this not feeling like cheap, because it was like, oh no, they set this up, Scrapper exists.
Yeah, I totally was expecting Amara to go into the Scrapper and save the day at the end.
Yeah, I was expecting Amara to do it at some point, but it was a nice surprise for Shao to like show up, like remote piloting it.
Get back to her roots,
Yeah. And well, that's the funny thing, is she has like the hair up the whole movie when she's meant to be evil, but the moment she like, in fact, so Baron Gordon goes to like try and like get Charlie Day to help like take her down because they think she's evil, right? And then it turns out he's the evil one, and he escapes. When he shows up to help back at base, he comes in with a fleet of helicopters, and like he's like, I brought some backup, and like comes out, and it's at this moment, the first time in the whole movie, her hair's down and it's like flowing in the wind, like, oh, only
she's not evil anymore.
Yeah, only good women have their hair flowing in the wind. The evil women, it's all uptight and like,
oh yeah,
rigid.
There's definitely a trope for that.
Probably,
for sure.
It probably is a trope, but
or like curly haired women versus straight haired women. Almost always like,
yeah. What's the trope though? What does each one mean?
Yeah, so almost always like the curly haired woman is evil.
Okay.
And like the straight, like really controlled hair is actually like the good one.
You're like literally halfway between those two extremes though. So where do you fall on that spectrum?
I don't know. I'm pretty evil.
Evil.
Got a lot of frizz.
With a touch of heart. Okay. Yeah, so Scrapper has to basically like, they have like one thruster that's still like got fuel in it that they can use to like fly up, but Gypsy can't even really walk anymore. But luckily this is when Scrapper comes in and Shao's all like, yeah, I'm here, backup's incoming. And so we get a little Scrapper running along the road, like holding up this big missile looking thruster, and welds it to Gypsy's hand, and they fly up. But then the escape pod's not working when they go up. So we get kind of a sort of bookend, because when they first met and the big Jaeger showed up to arrest her for building because people aren't allowed to build their own Jaegers. It's kind of frowned upon. They're called rogues, I think they mentioned earlier on. Boyega had to just sort of run into the cockpit, and he wasn't in like a proper spot because there was no space for him, so he was just kind of like trying to hold on and not die as like as it's running around. So there's kind of a sort of bookend to this where they think they're going to die because they can't get the escape pod to work, but then of course, if you just in case you forgot, Scrapper's been like hanging on the back of of Gypsy the whole time, and cuts into the helmet, gets them to come inside the little Scrapper, so they both have to just sort of like try and hold on while she's piloting the thing. And yeah, they roll off into the snow, and the Jaeger hits the big kaiju, and it works.
They've cancelled the apocalypse.
They've once again cancelled the apocalypse. Yeah, Boyega even tries to make a little speech at one point, but he doesn't even try to top his dad. He knows he can't. So he just like...
He does have charisma, though. I do like John Boyega.
I like Boyega. I think the problems in this with any of the characters are less to do with the actors, because I think most of them are entertaining and likable. Pretty much across the board. It really just comes down to how thin the characters are written, and some of the maybe a dodgy line of dialogue here or there that doesn't quite work or feels forced. So it is what it is. I also, I don't want to gloss over this because we kind of skipped over this. So when Bart Garman goes to talk to Charlie Day, right, thinking that Shao's the evil one behind everything, when he convinces Charlie Day to help, there's a scene where they're in the elevator and there's like guards around him, and
the girl from Ipanema is playing because that's always the elevator song. Do 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 do.
You didn't recognize the main theme. I don't recognize this, but
it's just standard elevator music in movies.
But yeah, I remember thinking this was weird when I first watched it. Although I guess it kind of makes some sense. No, it doesn't. No, because it's mostly Burn. Charlie Day only really takes out the one guy. But it turns out Burn with that cane is very effective. He takes out like 4 people in the elevator, like he's Captain America.
Don't underestimate him. Yeah, it is very much like, what is it, Civil War?
Yeah.
Or the Winter Soldier.
Yeah, it's Winter Soldier.
The elevator scene.
They just kind of play it for laughs, though, which is. Let's be honest. It's a cheesy movie about giant robots fighting giant monsters or other robots, right? I'll roll with it. Like I mean,
sure.
No part of me came into a movie like this wanting something deep or wanting like super. But there's definitely some fundamentals that feel like they're a bit sloppy, and because of that, it feels very thin.
Yeah, I agree.
But I think the action's good though. I enjoy the fights, particularly the third act one.
It's fun enough. I just don't I don't know. I just don't get into these type of movies unless I have some sort of like personal investment. Like I like the Power Rangers movie. It's very similar, and I know it's dumb, but like I get in. I know the main theme for that, and when it kicks in, like,
oh sure,
I feel it.
Of course.
Turns me back into like 9-year-old me.
Yeah, I think I like the spirit of this movie more than the first. If I was to try and like say it in a sentence, I like the spirit of Uprising more than the first film. Although I would agree that objectively the first film is probably the better of the two in terms of like direction and value and things like that. But
the first one's a bit cooler. Also, it's got like a coolness to it that this one has more of a we're like fun and for kids feeling.
Yeah, and I think that fits it better, which is why I think I like this one a little bit more, but just a little bit. Like maybe not as much as I did the first time I saw it, because the problems are maybe a little more in my face. That said, though, I had fun watching it again, and I'll watch it again someday because I have a fun time with it. It's an easy watch for sure.
I agree.
It's yeah, and I think the effects are pretty solid. There's definitely times, when they're in the snow, for example, the snow looks a bit fake, but I think it's not so much that I think it looks super realistic, but more that it's pleasing enough to look at. And that sounds like a weird thing, but sometimes it's not so much that the CGI's not realistic, but it's that it's ugly. It's that it's fake and ugly.
Sure.
Whereas here, I think it's so bright and colourful with them fighting in the city at the end that I never really worry about how realistic it looks. I'm too busy just enjoying the spectacle and the show. So yeah, for as cynical and as jaded as I can be, I'm actually kind of fairly positive on this. Well, it's warts and all, because it is a flawed film, and if you don't like this movie, I totally get it. If you're for someone who aligns with my taste on, dare I say, cinema, and you like to collect Criterions and shit like that, I'm there with you. This is not for everyone. It really isn't. But we can all have something that's a little sillier in our lives, and I think this is fine. I will happily watch this more than any Fast and the Furious movie.
Oh yeah, totally.
Like this is
it's
way
better
more my
than
taste.
Yeah, it's better than the Transformers movies.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I would agree with that.
And easier to watch and prettier to look at. But yeah, it's just not my type of film. I don't really enjoy these types of big chaotic movies with no point. Not that I need them all to have that, but like I don't know. There's a reason I think this appeals to like the Japanese and Chinese audience, other than like having just actors from those countries. They tend to make movies like this too. It's very anime.
Yes. which I'm not a fan of anime, but there's concepts that are in anime that I think are good concepts that, I don't know. Like, to me, the fun of a giant robot fight is seeing it look somewhat, photo real. And, at the very least, we're pretending that it's real. It's the sort of thing where making that animated, to me, takes all the charm out of having a giant robot. Like, if you're going to have a giant robot, make it look live action. Give me a giant robot in a city that looks real.
Yeah. Like Iron Giant.
Shut up. That movie's amazing. That just because
I haven't seen it. I know.
Because I like one animated movie with a robot in it does not defeat the point of what I'm
I know. I'm just teasing.
Like, Iron Giant doesn't have to be an Iron Giant though. Like that movie would work if it was, more of a regular sized alien or something like that. It would still work.
I wouldn't know. I haven't seen it.
Yes.
I was just picking on you.
Yes. I mean, that's science fiction, so I suppose we will do it in the show at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yes. You were proud of that deadpan snipe, though. I could see it. I could see it in your face.
Yep. How can I contradict Peter? Nailed it.
I think you enjoy contradicting me too much. That's what I think.
I'm just fighting back.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty much. I mean, I guess we didn't mention this kind of. It's not really a mid-credit scene. It's just kind of like there's the title comes up at the end, and then there's immediately a scene, which unfortunately is there to tease a third film, which probably is never happening because this didn't do that well financially. And what's really weird about it is the exact same ending as the second Independence Day, which is funny because we compared the ending.
Seen that.
Because we compared the third act of the first film to the ending of Independence Day so much, it's really funny that the little mid-credit tease at the end of the sequel is actually the exact same as the end of the mid-credit tease at the end of Independence Day 2, which is basically
we'll be ready.
Not because it's not we're going to be ready. It's we're taking the fight to them.
Mm.
I'm glad you pay attention in the movie, Tara.
I knew it was some sort of message. Tell your people we're coming, or we'll be ready, something like that.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's the promise of that cliffhanger, though, is that it's going to be different next time because we're not going to be waiting for them to attack. We're going to go there. We're going to open the portal and we're going to go kill them on their turf.
Seems like a mistake.
Seems like a mistake. It also seems like, I don't know, isn't that just committing genocide? Like, if you do that.
Yeah. Well, maybe they're not going to go after the kaiju. They're going to go after the Protoss or whoever they are on the other side.
The precursors were the name of the aliens.
Right.
Yeah.
Not the StarCraft aliens.
No. Is that what that word was?
Protoss? Yeah, it's Protoss, Terran, and Zerg. That's Zerg. Yeah, Zerg. I love StarCraft too.
I'm so glad you're just showing that you're nerdier than I am.
Just a skosh.
Oh dear. So hey, I mean that's basically Pacific Rim Uprising. That's the movie. It's just not obviously a super deep movie. It's not something that has like themes really.
No, I mean, troubled father trope. It's just a lot of tropes, right? Like John Boyega, he's like the guy it was too good that he used his abilities instead of doing the good thing to go to like crime, but like the people want him back because he's the best.
Yeah, but
he's just like his dad.
But even it's super thin though, because like the most that ever comes out of it is, Amara says to him, "Your dad would be proud," like sort of towards the end. But there's never it's never like he really has I mean, he kind of acknowledges his dad.
He doesn't really
speech.
earn that much. Like he doesn't like have to work for it that hard because he's already been established as he's the best because of his lineage.
Kinda, yeah. Actually, that's the other thing with Amara is that So we see like in the same way in the first film that when she drifts with Boyega, we get to see kind of her like her sad origin
Her trauma.
story. Yeah. And I actually kind of like this little flashback because it's basically so a kaiju showed up when she was a little girl, and like she was on a pier because she was out for a fun day with the family, and they do this thing where there's like a sort of like there's a big gap in the bridge now, and all of her family are on one side, she's on the other side, and her dad's like, "Hey, jump! I've got you, honey, I'll catch you." And then just as she's about to jump, the foot comes in and squashes her whole family. I thought that was
it's
actually
a little
really
funny.
It's really dark. It's a really comically dark moment. But they kind of try to pay that off at the end, where she has to jump over from her seat to where Boyega is, so that they can use the same escape pod, which then doesn't work, obviously, as we mentioned earlier. But he's like, "Oh, I've got you. I've got to trust me." So she has to have this moment, and again, it's very thin. It's like the thinnest like screenwriting I've ever seen, which is just, oh, she had trouble trusting someone to catch her, so we'll have someone have to catch her at the end, and which. Do you know what? This would be more effective if she didn't already take the huge leap of faith into the hand, like 5 minutes before the scene. She already did this.
Forgot about that.
Without and that time, Boyega was saying, "No, don't do it. Don't do it. It's too dangerous," and she did it anyway. But then she has this moment here when she's like, "So I've got you." It's like, wait, so it's only if someone puts their hand out and says, "I've got you," that you have this traumatic moment where you're like, "No, that's making me think of my dead dad. No."
Yeah, you're right. Pretty thin.
Thin.
Should we rate it?
Everything's thin. Yeah, we can. Clearly, Tara wants to wrap this up, but yes, everything.
I think we've gone the distance with the movie. I think.
Okay, but yeah, yes, everything like. There's so many little things set up for every character, but they're all very thin.
Yeah.
That's the theme of the movie, is that everything's like, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's better than some movies that don't even do that. Like some won't. At least it at least goes through the motions.
They attempted to have a script. Yeah.
Yes. But it rushes through too much of it and is too thin to actually resonate that much. But ultimately, some fun action. So, okay, Tara, what would you like to rate Pacific Rim Uprising?
So yeah, it's all right. I'll give it a 6. I think it's a perfectly fine, fun, watchable movie. It reminds me of a lot of other movies that have come out, like Power Rangers or even like the Transformers films. But it's not terrible. Like it's definitely watchable. If you like the first one, I think you'll like this one too. I don't think it suffers a little bit from sequelitis, but like I think it's got a strong lead with John Boyega. He is charismatic and fun to watch, and the girl's pretty good too.
Yeah, she's good. Yeah,
and they have good chemistry together. A lot of the other stuff obviously is not good, and it does bring it down. But the movie goes by pretty quickly, so the stuff that you don't like, is quickly gone. So yeah, it's a 6.
I think that's fair. I do know there is a lot of people who love the first one who don't like the second one and just look at it as trash. And
well, there's a lot of Guillermo del Toro fans, I think.
Yes.
I think that's probably who are the loudest.
But I think the first film, like, I was surprised by how much I liked the first film, and I still am. But it does have faults, and it isn't a perfect movie by any means. I kind of like it in spite of its faults, and I kind of feel the same way about this one, where the faults aren't the exact same, and there's some things that I like less about this one, but there's some things that I like more. So I'm going to be generous because I do have fun with it. I'm going to give it a 7. I'm going to say that for what it is, I don't even want to say it's good, but I think that it felt good to watch. So I'm going to give it a 7.
Okay.
I'm going to give it a 7, which is I think that's what I give the first one as well. So, yes.
I hope Scott Eastwood gets like a role where he's not playing the by the books military guy, so we can actually see if he's good or not. He seems to be typecast in a lot of things.
Yes.
I mean, he's got the name, the legacy name. Let's give him, just give him a Western or something. Just see what he does with it.
Do you know what? Clint Eastwood's so old that I would feel like if you told me Scott Eastwood was his grandson and not his son, I would believe you.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Like, there is a pretty significant age gap there.
Because Clint Eastwood's like in his late
90?
80s. Yeah, he's like 90, maybe actually, yeah.
I think he's 90. I'll look it up.
Tara's very loud mechanical keyboard
I
making its guest appearance.
love it. I love it.
Making its guest appearance on the show.
He was born 1930. So I'm making 91 this year.
91
Actually,
this
May
year.
31st, so he turned 91.
All right, well, good for him, I guess.
Way to go, Eastwood.
That's old.
Yeah. But man, you can sure see it. Like, there are some shots where it's just like, that's young Eastwood right there.
Yeah. Okay. There you go. That's Pacific Rim Uprising. If you made it this far into the review, put the word scrapper into the comments. You can, of course, like and subscribe and ding the bell for notifications, especially since we're on the Mail Fuzz Movies channel now. So it is just Ace and Screams and maybe other movie reviews content that I make that'll be on this one. So, ding the bell. You get more movie review podcast stuff. You get notified every time it happens. I will also tell you, once again, to go and submit your top sci-fi movies in the submission form that's in the description. I'll make sure I tweet it out a few times as well, but it's in the description of this episode, so make sure you do that. Tara, why don't you tell them all about Patreon?
If you enjoy our reviews, you can check out our Patreon page. It's patreon.com/mildfuzztv. And if you donate as little as $1 per month, you will actually get episodes of Ace that are bonus episodes. So if you're looking for your favorite B movies like Trancers or Robot Jocks. That's what it's called, right?
Yeah,
that's what it's called. Robot Jocks or
Robot Jocks is like Pacific Rim, but made for about $200.
Mm-hmm. It was actually quite fun to watch. From the same director as The Reanimator, right?
Yeah, Stuart Gordon.
Yeah.
It's honestly it drags a little bit in the middle, but honestly, it's worth a watch. Robot Jocks, not a bad movie.
Yeah.
For the time it came
so
out.
You'll get that for $1. I'd buy that for $1. Why don't we use that more? Anyway, and if you donate $5 per month, you'll get access to this show one day early, and you'll get access to other shows we do a week early. So may you benefit. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'll also, for some reason I'm doing this after I made you do that, but so I'll also thank our producers. Our Patreon producers are the $20 or more tiers. So thank you to Tyler Hess, Cindy Palacios, David Sharp, Board Now, Al Treisman, Christopher Moy, David Brown, and Stanley. So thank you to all of you wonderful people. Thanks to all our patrons. So there you go. I'm going to make Tara pose for the thumbnail. So here we go. 3, 2, 1, pause.
I don't know. Robot Jocks.
I feel like you got darker. Wait, I don't know if you lean back or something. I go see. There you go.
Yeah, a little bit.
I have to.
I only have one light source.
Yeah, I may have to make it lean forward for future thumbnails. We'll see how dim you look on the thumbnail for this one.
I always look pretty dim on this show.
Ah, shut up. That's not what I meant.
Nailed it.
Does that make me the brain? Are you Pinky?
Sure.
Pinky
We'll say that.
and the brain.
Except I'm the one in control.
One is a genius, the other's insane. All right. So So next time on the Ace, we're actually going to do a recent film, a Netflix movie called Stowaways. So that's what's coming up next time on the show. I look forward to that. And if you are obviously on the Male Fuzz Movies YouTube channel, which you will be if you're watching this, you'll notice that classic episodes are being re-uploaded onto that channel. So you'll be seeing maybe a couple of those a week going up. So if you're wondering what's going on, that's just what it is. But if you haven't seen them, if you're newer and you weren't around for those old episodes, you can see Tara's super short hair and see what it was like when we started. So check out that too. But that is
basically the same.
We've got
I think
better.
you did. I think you've gone lighter on the age jokes now. I mean, you sprinkle them in from time to time, but you were pretty heavy on the age jokes in the beginning.
Was I? Okay.
It was like your one shtick. Like, I don't know anything about this girl other than she's older than me.
Yes, I have a lot more ammunition now.
Mm-hmm.
So this is true.
As do I.
Lies, filthy lies. This has been the Atomic Cinema Experiment. Thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching science fiction. And computer, that's Elsa.
Tonight we have cancelled the apocalypse.